Well, hello and welcome to this week's edition of On Deck with Avoya, your weekly travel update. I'm your host, Chris Green, the Director of Network Growth for Avoya Travel. We're coming to you live here on Facebook. I'm in sunny Florida. Sure wish I could ship some of that sunshine to my friends in Texas. And boy, certainly wish you well if you happen to be tuning in from there. Hopefully your heat's on and starts to warm up for you. We certainly appreciate your time and thanks for joining us for our weekly conversation about the travel industry and some of the resources we provide here at Avoya Travel. Our goal remains the same. We hope to spark your curiosity, to kind of wet your whistle, to get you to reach out and want to have a deeper conversation about the resources you hear about when we talk about them here on Deck with Avoya, your weekly travel update. My team of specialists would love to do that deep dive about Avoya Travel with you and explain the best-in-class resources that we offer and see if they would be a good fit for you and your independent travel agency. I have a great guest coming up here in just a couple of minutes for our Meet the Team feature, Kerry Fredericks, the Senior Director of Independent Agency Support for Avoya Travel. But before we meet Kerry, let's jump into this week's news with our Eye on the Industry feature, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on with this week's top stories. It's another week of tug of war, that tug of war game between the positive news and the negative news in the travel industry. On the positive side, many agencies are reporting, and Avoya Travel would certainly be in that camp, robust sales. Clients are really interested in things that are booking for the fourth quarter of this year, and then very strong as we look into 2022 and 2023. The list of our independent affiliates, the members of the Avoya Travel Network that have sold around the world cruises, is just staggering. We had several more make those sales this week. River cruising for Europe, again, looking into the future, is still very strong, and very strong interest in the all-inclusive resorts, some of those that happen to be open for American travelers right now in the Caribbean, parts of the Caribbean, and of course down in Mexico. But you have to counterbalance that with the bad news, right? So another round of cancellations, and it seems like there's just no end in sight for those. This time, Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings Limited, that's the parent company for NCL, has announced another month of delays, now pushing any potential sailings back until at least June 1st of this year. And that's for all three of their brands, NCL, Oceania, and Regent Seven Seas. And I fully expect that you're going to hear the same news over the next couple of days from all of the big players in the cruise side. No one at this point has met the conditions of the conditional sale order that was issued by the CDC back at the end of October. Carnival Cruise Corporation this week raised another $3.5 billion, yes, that's billion with a B, in cash in a private offering. This round of fundraising came at what was reported as a very attractive interest rate of 5.7%. And for Carnival, the most important thing is they didn't have to put up any assets in order to be able to secure this money. Arnold Donald, the CEO of Carnival Corporation, is quoted as saying, "It gives us some additional liquidity so we can withstand an extended pause if we have to." And he also mentioned that it's a very positive sign for leisure travel in general that they had the ability to raise that money, especially raise that kind of cash without having to put up any assets. Following up on a story that we first talked about last week on Deck with Avoya, the CDC has now come out and said they're not considering mandatory COVID tests for domestic air flights. The agency was quoted by CNN as saying, at this time, CDC is not recommending required point of departure testing for domestic travel. As part of our close monitoring of the pandemic, we will continue to review public health options for containing and mitigating spread of COVID-19 in the travel space. ASTA, great organization, we talk about them all the time, and the other members of the Runway to Recovery Coalition had been pushing the CDC to kind of reconsider what had come out last week, and it seems like they've had at least a positive outcome from now, and we'll keep our eyes on that story. And finally, a little good news on the travel closer to home front, an area of travel that Avoya Travel has really beefed up our resources since COVID-19 hit, as we've kind of had to pivot and look at things in areas that people can travel since most of the international travel destinations have been shut down. Well, the MGM Corporation out of Las Vegas has announced that January, they saw their strongest future bookings since the COVID-19 crisis started. And many of these people are booking 90 days or more into the future, which is always a positive sign. And so they've announced that that means that their properties, several of them, including the flagship property MGM Grand, will resume 24/7 operations. it's kind of hard to imagine that we're celebrating the fact that Vegas is going to be open 24 hours a day. I mean, it was always just a given, right? But we'll take the good news where we can find it, no doubt. So let's move forward with our next segment of On Deck with Avoya, your weekly travel update. And this week's Meet the Team feature. This is quickly becoming my favorite feature here on Deck with Avoya, because I get to feature and learn so much about my amazing coworkers. These people are just so talented. And this week's special guest is Kerry Fredericks. Kerry is Avoya Travel's Senior Manager for Independent Agency Support. Kerry and her team have attained almost godlike status in the Avoya Travel Network because let's face it, if you're a travel agent and you need support, you want support. And at Avoya Travel, we're very proud of the fact that support has always been one of our cornerstone resources that we offer. So we're really excited to have Kerry join us, and we welcome Kerry Fredericks as our guest this week on Deck with Avoya. Kerry, thanks so much for being our guest today.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Kerry, the first thing I want to talk about is your great history in the travel industry. I mean, I see that you basically grew up in travel, right? Your parents were travel agencies owners. You've had several jobs in the travel industry, including being an agency owner yourself. What is your first memory of the travel business, and what about travel excites you and makes you want to stay in this great yet crazy industry to this day?
I remember being in my parents' brick and mortar agency in Long Island, and I can vividly remember looking at an OAG to create airline tickets, which I hand wrote. There's like 7 copies, I believe, and then separating them and doing a manual ARC report every Monday morning. So I'm probably dating myself pretty badly there, but that's where my industry experience started. And I think that like anybody in this industry, once you get bitten by the travel bug, it just sort of stays in your blood, right? Just being able to go all over the world and see different things, eat different foods, see different sites, interact with different people. You can't get rid of it, I don't think.
I would totally agree with that. And I would have to assume the fact that you grew up kind of in the travel industry, that you were really lucky that you were able to kind of lock in some of those amazing adventures kind of fairly early in life and kind of set the tone. Any of those early adventures still percolate and resonate with you now and really hold up all these years later?
My very first cruise was on the Rotterdam. I think I was about 12 years old, and my mother was a little bit of a seamstress, and she made all of our formal gowns for me and my 4 sisters. We pretty much thought we were red carpet material. We were pretty spectacular in our own minds. But yeah, and now looking back on it, we probably look like something off A Little House on the Prairie. But nonetheless, at the time, it was a great experience.
That's fantastic. I just love the visual that comes along with that. Let's chat for a minute about your current role as the Senior Manager for Independent Agency Support. What exactly does that entail, and what are some of the things that you and your team provide support for?
We support primarily Agent Power and Avoya processes. So making sure everything is entered into Agent Power accurately for the purpose of invoicing your commission, being able to send invoices to the customer, and all of the resources, the ton of resources that Avoya offers through Agent Power, supplier resources, different promotional marketing resources. So we support all of that aspect of it. We also sort of triage for just about every department in the company. So if an independent affiliate has a question with regard to commission or promotions or groups, and it's something that we can't answer, we gather all the pertinent information and we send it off to that team for them to give the clarity that we need in order to respond to them in a timely fashion. We're open 7 days a week, and we're sort of a jack of all trades. We just support them in every aspect of their affiliation, basically.
I mean, as a former independent agent in the Avoya Travel Network, and I know you're a former member of the network yourself, do you think the fact that you're a former agency owner, the fact that you've seen it from the other side, that you've probably felt that stress of needing support, or maybe those feelings at moments that I'm in this all by myself. Do you think just that perspective just allows you a different vantage point when you're trying to assist and provide that support?
Very much so. And in fact, Ellen Hausenbach, who works on our team, she was also an IA. And yeah, we do definitely have a perspective in that regard on a number of different levels, not the least of which is from a sales perspective. That's your income. So we tend to prioritize SRs that are time sensitive, and so much we want the IA selling travel. If it's a question on a promotion or something that may or may not affect the sale, we want to handle that first. We also put a lot of priority on the commissions. Getting paid is obviously very important. We know the thrill, if you will, of being an independent contractor and a commissioned sales agent. So we know the importance of that too. And then also, yes, on a sort of an isolated an isolation issue, if you will. You are alone. You're working from home. You may or may not have an employee with you, and it can get a little bit isolating to a degree. But to reach out to us, again, we're open 7 days a week. We will help you in any way we can. And so, yeah, I definitely see that perspective and the need to be able to lend a hand to the IAs.
And for some people that might be joining us today who are with another network, that might sound staggering. 7 days a week to be able to reach out and actually have support people to reach out to. But again, support has always been one of the cornerstones of Avoya Travel's offerings. And so if you're missing that from your host agency, again, reach out. My team would be more than happy to have that conversation with you. What are some of the biggest challenges, Kerry, that you and your team have faced because of the COVID-19 crisis? And I'm sure that you've had to kind of work differently because of it than you were prior, right?
We have, but I think honestly, we've adapted just on the fly, seemingly day in, day out, about different challenges that have been presented to us. And our main concern has always been on supporting the network. They're out there in the trenches. They're dealing with the customers and getting them rebooked and their refunds or lack thereof or whatever they might be facing. So I think that all of the Avoya teams have really worked together with prioritizing the network and the customers and one another. One of the biggest things we've done is with like the future cruise credits, by thousands and thousands of them. We worked with business intelligence and immediately came up with a process by which they import them automatically. So just taking something else off the plate of the independent affiliate so they can focus on the customers. So anything we can do that will help them focus on their agencies is what we've done. And we really just we're reinventing ourselves by the day as they are, as policies change constantly with the vendors too.
It really goes to the heart of them. The next question I have, because that's a little bit about the concept of a shared success relationship. And of course, at Avoya Travel, we really pride ourselves on that shared success relationship that we have with the members of the Avoya Travel Network. It really goes hand in hand. And it kind of reminds me of that parable from the Bible, right? Where the story goes about, you give a man a fish and he'll eat for the day, but you teach a man to fish and he's going to be able to feed himself for a lifetime. And in my opinion, and again, you correct me if I'm wrong, but to me, support really only works if the person who needs support is looking to gain that education so that they can become a little bit more self-reliant instead of looking for somebody that's just going to do it for them. Would you agree with that line of thinking?
Exactly. And wherever possible, whenever we answer a support request or a call, we usually take the time to show the independent affiliate where they can find that answer within Age and Power. Because even though we're open 7 days a week, we still have a very large network, and it's very hard for us to give the one-on-one time that a lot of them would need, let's say, on a specific issue. So if you know where to get an Age and Power, you don't have to waste time calling support or submitting a support request. You can answer the question right away and move on with Sell and Travel. So that's always our goal.
And you've heard Kerry mention Agent Power a couple of times. If you reach out to my team, we can get you a one-on-one demonstration of this amazing piece of technology so that you can really kind of put a visual to the technology that we talk about. Kerry, let's talk for a second about you, Kerry Fredericks, the person outside of Avoya Travel, because I was looking at the information you sent over, and wow, you've lived just a fascinating life. I'm really interested in the fact that you're a dual citizen of both the United States and Ireland. Tell me a little bit about that and your special connection to the Emerald Isle.
My grandparents are from Belfast. I still have quite a bit of family over in Belfast. And as long as you can demonstrate descent, i.e. grandparents or parents, you can get citizenship if they were born on the island of Ireland. So my citizenship is with Ireland, not Great Britain and United Kingdom as Northern Ireland would. So I have a passport and I'm registered in the Foreign Birth Registry, and I'm actually a citizen of Ireland.
That's kind of cool. It's
very
really
cool. It's really cool.
And I'm assuming you made some trips over there to be able to visit the former homeland.
Yeah, many. And I want to get my daughter studied over there in Derry in Northern Ireland. So yeah, it's very much a part of our life for sure.
And you lived in London for a little while, and I found it just fascinating that you were certified for the London Stock Exchange. I mean, how in the world did that happen?
I did part of my college degree in London, and then I continued on to London School of Economics, doing some studying there. And then I worked for Baring Securities, which is a British investment firm, a banking and investment firm. And so they asked me if they wanted them to sponsor me to become a registered representative of London Stock Exchange, and I said sure. So I went and I did it, and I became a trading assistant in Japanese Eurobonds and warrants.
Well, if you have any stock tips, right, just remember your friend Chris. If there's a GameStop or something, kind of revolving in your little world.
Robin Hood.
Kerry, I know we both had like bucket list type trips that were canceled because of the whole COVID-19 and the shutdown of international travel. What's on the horizon? Any kind of makeup trip that you're just excited to get going as soon as international travel reopens?
My Ama Waterways Christmas Markets cruise. That was my bucket list trip for this year that got canceled. So I am determined that I'm going to do that just as soon as I possibly can. Although at this point, a 3-night Bahamas would be inviting. So, but that's my goal is to get over to the river cruise for sure.
Yeah, I think I mean, to be honest with you, I would be happy just to wait at the port, you know what I
That's
mean?
what I'm saying.
And
Right.
play the game for a couple of hours if I could. Kerry, to wrap up our Meet the Team feature, if you had one simple piece of advice, considering all of your experience, both as an agency owner, growing up in the travel industry, your position now as the senior manager of support, and you were offering one little piece of advice to a travel agent, what would that advice be?
I think just have confidence in our industry. And I think that the travel agents that have weathered this COVID crisis are going to come out on the other side of this with a tremendous opportunity. And I think that we're really poised, we're right on the precipice, I think, of a huge comeback. And I think that the travel advisors are going to be essential. I think that the world needs a vacation right now after all we've been through. And I think that they really are going to find themselves to play a very integral role in that.
Kerry, what a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for being our special guest this week on our Meet the Team feature on Deck with Avoya.
Thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate it.
Kerry Fredericks, everyone, Avoya Travel Senior Manager of Independent Agency Support for Avoya Travel. And next week on our Meet the Team feature, we're going to introduce you to Mickey McBride, Director of Partner Engagement and Development for Avoya Travel. And make sure you join us for that great discussion. Well, you can see it on the screen as we move forward. Let's talk about promotions, right? Because anybody that qualifies to affiliate with the Avoya Travel Network right now qualifies for at least one of two promotions. Either A, you qualify for the promotion where we're going to waive the initial affiliation fee, or B, you're going to qualify to have your first renewal waived if at the end of that initial agreement, both sides decide that they want to renew that agreement. So let's talk about that a little bit. Right now, for a kind of a high-end experienced travel professional, and when we mean high-end, we're talking about agents that have been consistently, not daily, but yeah, in some cases daily, weekly, monthly. They understand the full cycle. They've had clients throughout the full cycle. In 2019, they may have been over $500,000 in gross sales, either as an independent agency owner, as an employee with some of the big travel companies. You may have been impacted by COVID-19. You might have some of the future travel or cruise credits that we heard Kerry talk about a few minutes ago, and in which case, as a member of the network, you could use those credits with your new affiliation. You might have bookings on the books. There's lots of ways that a professional agent could qualify to have that fee waived. So reach out. Again, my team is more than happy to do the legwork and have the discussion with you. And if by chance you're not at that level yet, maybe that's your goal. Maybe you're ready to take the next step forward. Maybe you've already taken the next step forward, but you're with a network that can't take that step with you. Reach out, because if you don't qualify for the initial completely waiving of the $495 fee, you would qualify, as long as you're qualified to join the network, to have your first 6-month renewal fee waived. So again, either way, you're going to have a chance to save, and you're going to be able to explore this with complete flexibility, no long-term contract or exclusive agreement. Contact us for eligibility details. Again, this is for a limited time only. But again, everybody that qualifies to affiliate qualifies for one of the promotions. So that's pretty exciting. And again, the whole purpose, the reason we do this on Deck with Avoya is, again, we just want you to maybe get a little bit excited. You hear something and say, wow, where I am, they don't have that. Or wow, I could certainly make great use of that for my agency. I could really use that to move my agency forward. I could see myself using those resources as we come out of this COVID-19 crisis to really build the travel agency of my dreams. Well, reach out. Here's my contact information. We're pretty easy to get a hold of. You can either reach out to us right here on Facebook, right? You can just leave us a message on the Avoya Network Facebook page. You can go to our website, avoyanetwork.com. There's my email, chris.green@avoyatravel.com, the phone number to reach us. I don't care. You can send smoke signals. We'll figure it out, but reach out. Let's engage. Let's have a conversation, and let's see if together we can't put together the beginnings of a shared success relationship. I think you and your business would greatly benefit from the best-in-class resources that are offered by Avoya Travel. Again, thank you so much for your time this week, for joining us for On Deck with Avoya, your weekly travel update. I look forward to next week. Again, we're going to have Nikki McBride as our special guest. Thank you again to Kerry Fredericks, who was a fantastic guest this week on our Meet the Team feature. Thank you, as always, to Marissa Smith, who produces our segment, does such a wonderful job with all the technical stuff in the background. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Thanks again, everyone.